Hey my friends, welcome back to a new video. I have a special message for anyone that came across this video. So if this is happening to you right now, that you are building certain discipline, certain momentum, but at some point you've fallen off the track. Like sometimes we're overcoming bad habits and we start designing new ones and we become really good at it until at some point we start falling, and at some point we fail. We think we failed. We've fallen off the track, we've lost the momentum, and suddenly we feel like failures. We feel again unworthy of the change that we wish to see or wish to experience. Suddenly we feel like we're not good enough and we start sabotaging ourselves. But the truth is that it's not about that you failed. Well, we will fail again and again and again in the future, because that's the process of growth. But to me, it's always, my approach to that is always how much better I'm able to handle this situation than the last time I failed. Because it gives us another way of looking on things. So my friends, maybe you failed, maybe you've fallen off the track, but it's nothing bad about it. The question is how much better you are able to handle it. And that's truly something that we just need to remind ourselves. Because every time we do something that we would consider it as a bad thing, like we failed, okay, I broke that habit and I did something that I truly didn't want to do, and we start sabotaging ourselves and we fall into those emotional reactions, and suddenly we feel like we are like, I'm a bad person, I can't change, I'm unworthy of change. You know, we fall into those reactions and then we stay there for some moments and maybe sometimes for some days and maybe for some people some weeks. But at some point you will catch yourself and you will decide to get back on track. And you will notice that you've handled it a bit better than the last time it happened. And it doesn't mean that you will never fail again. Because, you know, we are trying and we become better and we get to the top of feeling good until we start falling, and at some point we just feel unmotivated, uninspired, and at some point we maybe break a habit again or break that pattern that we're building, and at some point we feel like failures once again. But every time we become more acknowledged, we become more aware, and when we become more aware, we are able to recognize more lessons that this path has taught us. And when we are able to see and recognize more lessons that this path of trying, applying, doing and failing taught us, we become wiser. And that's the growth, that's the evolution and expansion. So don't be afraid of those failures and those fallings and losing the path or track and feeling like being stuck. Be there, recharge yourself, rejuvenate, take care of your sleep, meditate if you need, be more often in nature, and go into that deep introspection so we can recognize what you've learned and then get back on track. And maybe it feels like I've tried it so many times before and I'm still failing, and of course it's so natural. Like, how often I failed on, for example, making these videos or making an artwork. Just behind me right now is another painting that I've started and I failed it because it didn't happen the way that I wanted it. The colors were just, I couldn't mix them the way that or blend them the way I'm usually blending, and I will just cover it up with a new one, new idea. And that's something that is so natural about this process of growth, of expansion, of greater self-awareness. And truly the most important thing is just finding out how much better we can handle the situation, and that's called emotional awareness. Because every time it happens, it triggers us emotionally. And then every time it repeats, we will experience the same emotions. but our approach and our response to that will be a bit different. Our brain is changing, and therefore we are changing, and our approach to the situation is changing. And the question is, how much more aware can you become the next time that it will happen? And how much differently can you respond to it? Can you be more kinder towards yourself? And what is kindness? Can you recognize what for you kindness towards yourself represents? Because often we hear that, and often also I say to you, be kind towards yourself. But what it truly means to you? What is your practice of self-kindness? Is it like retreat from your life and taking care of certain self-care routines that you're usually not doing? And especially when you fail, do you truly take time for yourself? And rather than just sabotaging yourself, you step away a little bit and you start looking your life through new eyes of perception, like seeing what you've missed before and recognizing how could you do it differently right now. What mistakes have you repeated over and over again that you could actually stop repeating if you become more aware of this situation? And just keep up with that. Keep up. Eventually you will get to the point where you will decide to get back on track. And that's where you will create that momentum once again, and you will start growing and growing and growing, and at some point you will get to the top of that growth, of that mountain. And when we're at the top, usually we feel, oh, everything is now working. Oh, I'm in the flow. And as soon as we start feeling that, at some point we start falling and we start meeting new challenges and sometimes new roadblocks and sometimes new, maybe negative events. Again, they're teaching us to balance ourselves. Because as much as we are excited when everything is good, we'll be sad and maybe in sorrow or in pain when everything will go like what we would say badly. So what we are learning on that process of growth is how to stay in balance more and more often. And that's the whole purpose of those ups and downs and ups and downs, because everything is moving upwards. Our growth, our evolution is upward spiral, but it's not just straight line upwards, it's like this, you know. The path is always upwards because we're always growing, always expanding, always learning more about life, but it is like this, ups and downs and ups and downs. But those ups and downs are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller until we become fully in balance with ourselves. And that's the whole process of that transformation. So my friends, don't be afraid to fail, and even if you will feel bad, accept those feelings, accept those emotions. Because there's actually a release that will happen when you start to feel what you feel. And you just become okay with yourself feeling those sensations. It's a reaction towards what happened. And rather than rejecting it, rather than suppressing it or ignoring it or running away from it that most people do, and they seek for some pleasures, so they would run away from what feels unpleasant, we in tune with that. We take a moment in a day and we just feel how we feel about this situation. You listen to your emotions. And something happens when you listen to your emotions without judging them. That's often a great practice of meditation, when you just listen without judging what you're feeling. A release will happen, and suddenly, often we experience that sense of liberation. So be present with yourself and stay aware, my friends. So this is it. I hope you found, or you can find something valuable in here, and have a beautiful journey, my friends. I'm sending you all lots of love, blessings, and power. Have a beautiful day. Until next time, one love. you.